Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you're well. It is Friday the 31st of January 2025. Welcome to Saorsa Live. We are streaming on YouTube and TikTok tonight, so do please take the time to like and share across all these platforms and say hello in the comments too. If we lose the live stream for any reason on one of the platforms, please head across to the other and continue the chat there. We're also recording this live and all the comments to ensure the security and integrity of the stream. This week, and the videos that I've been putting up on YouTube and on TikTok, we've been having a bit of go at the Scottish Unionists, also known as Anglo-British nationalists, asking why they are happy to belittle their own country. They love to mock the successes that have come from Holyrood, and they would prefer the abuse of the Union over the self-determination of their own land. I pity them. No, I do pity them, but not in a mocking sort of way, in a fraternal way, because they are Scots as well. And even though I have been told in the YouTube comments that I'm in a cult, that sitting in a dark room is not good for me. Thank you for that, by the way, watching out for my health. Even I've had an insinuation as well that I'm the sort that would probably hang around school gates. You know, I still have nothing but love for my Anglo-British nationalist brothers and sisters who, as I said, are still Scots. Why do I not bite to such things? Well, A, it's a waste of energy because these aren't the people that I'm talking to. I'm talking to the undecided voters. And also because I believe that our movement is not set in a paradigm where calling each other names, especially our fellow countrymen, I just find that unacceptable. And to be honest, if they are name-calling and insinuating that the police may want to take a look at my hard drive, then they've lost the argument already. However, there is one commenter, a unionist, who I do have a little bit of respect for, and his name is James. He always comments very politely in the YouTube channel, and I wanted to thank him, for his discussion and, trying his best not to be like the Anglo-Britnats there. Okay, so James, if you're in the audience, listen, I really appreciate it. I'm going to have a quick look. I don't see him coming in. Maybe he'll watch this back and understand right from the start that I value his opinions, and I will give you 10 minutes of my time, the same way as I did with Mark, to answer some of your questions at some point. Okay? Tonight as well, instead of having jingles between the segments, we're going to actually turn round and play some music that is been written specifically for the independence movement. I've done the lyrics myself and then had them made into songs, and I've called the band Saorsa, which is freedom music in Gaelic. Okay, but first and foremost, as always, we need to play this jingle. Start our lives with an important reminder that we are fighting one of the world's greatest propaganda machines, the British state and their right-wing oligarch-run media. To combat this, we ask that you always follow, like and share and comment positively across all social media platforms on any of your favourite Scottish independence creators and commentators. By doing this, you help to spread the word of our cause and manipulate social media algorithms to benefit our struggle. So please, for now, like and share this live stream, and if you haven't already, follow this account. Thank you. Let's have a wee look to see who is in TikTok land. First of all, I see Scottslass. I saw Dave coming in, but Dave's jumping between TikTok land and YouTube land as well. I saw Wendy, hello Wendy, and my other account sitting there being an admin as well. Listen, if you're in TikTok land, share it out to your friends, please. Pretty please. And also as well in YouTube land, I saw Henry, there's Mark, there's Zen, Eddie, Wolfpet. There's a good few people in there tonight. If I've missed anybody, let me just scroll back. If I've missed anybody, I apologise. MMCC. Right, okay, right. I was listening. I read that the Scotland channel had their first broadcast for news tonight. It came up in my YouTube feed, but I've not had time to watch it. So I'm going to make a point of watching it. Listen, if you are going to turn round and follow any other independence accounts, go and follow the Scotland channel. Just go and do it, because they're trying to create a whole kind of different sort of media format there as well. Mr. Towson, Mr. Robert Towson, how are you, sir, on a new account? Listen, go and send me a message so I can know that it's you, and I'll follow you, sir. Okay? Good. Listen, before we actually get into the meat and bones tonight as well, I also wanted to pay tribute to something that is quite historical that has happened today. It's called the Hague Group. Who are they? Well, I'm going to read this directly from the National, okay, just because it's nothing really to do with Scottish independence, but it's something that I really firmly believe in, okay? Israel will face diplomatic and economic sanctions from a league of countries which have unveiled a raft of measures to punish the country for its conduct in Palestine. Representatives from a host of countries announced the formation of the Hague Group in the Dutch city today, which will spearhead an international movement to stand against Israel for what they have said were its repeated war crimes in Gaza. In a statement, the Hague Group has said, "We, the representatives of the below countries," I'm not going to name them all just now, basically inaugurate the Hague Group. At a press conference attended by representatives from all nations, the group announced its aims, which is to uphold the arrest warrants against Benjamin Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, and prevent the provision of transfer of arms or any kind of military kit to Israel that might be used to commit war crimes or genocide. Prevent vessels at any port in their countries if it's a clear risk of the vessel being used to carry military fuel and weaponry also to Israel, as in the circumstances above. The statement was read out by Zain Dangar, Director General South Africa's Department of International Relations. He said the countries will refuse to remain passive in the face of such international crimes by Israel. Now, this comes quite late in the timeline of the disgusting genocide that we are all aware of taking place in Gaza, and in my opinion should just implement as a starting point. I'd like to see more countries join this group, and I would like to see Scotland joining this group, and I don't know how that would work, considering, we're in a union and we don't have it's a reserved matter in international relations, isn't it? So I would still like to see that explored. I think that would be an interesting concept, simply because as well, if Scotland wants to be part of that, it would highlight our democratic deficit, our inadequacy to stand on our own 2 feet because of the union. All right? It's something I think would be worth exploring. Anyway, let's get on with the show.
My name is Kinneach, and I want to build a better Scotland by creating a fairer, more equal society where the country's success and prosperity is measured by the people's happiness and well-being. What would you do to build a better Scotland?
Why do Scottish Unionists find it acceptable to laugh at the exploitation of their own country? Why do they celebrate every time Westminster tightens its grip and takes Scotland's resources and makes life harder for ordinary Scots? Why do they bend the knee to a system that profits from Scotland's work but leaves us with the scraps? I think it's time that we took a hard look at Westminster's track record, because this is not a partnership. We know this. This is economic control and democratic suppression and cultural erasure, all cheered on by Scottish Unionists. I think we should just get into the nitty gritty of this. Okay, there's a few things that I talked about on the videos, okay, which we're going to just touch on and go through. Okay, so one of them is brand spanking new, and it's only come out in the past couple of days, and this is one I didn't put in the videos, and this is blocking Scotland's deposit return scheme. We tried to introduce a DRS system, a simple environmentally friendly system to recycle plastic and glass bottles. Most European countries have similar things. It reduces waste, it helps the economy, and it cuts pollution. And it's pretty much a good idea, right? Well, not if you're Westminster, because Westminster stepped in and blocked Scotland's deposit return scheme. They told Scotland we weren't allowed to implement our own environmental policy, basically. Scottish Unionists cheered at this decision, calling it a victory, as if sabotaging Scotland's recycling efforts is something to celebrate. But here's where it gets worse. Westminster is now introducing virtually an identical system for England by 2027. The same policy they said that Scotland couldn't have. So let's get this straight, shall we? When Scotland wants a deposit return scheme, it's illegal, it's reckless, it's unworkable. But when Westminster does it for England, it's innovative, necessary and progressive. And the Scottish Unionists say nothing. They accept it. They laugh at Scotland being blocked and applaud Westminster for taking the idea for themselves. How pathetic. We've talked many times about North Sea oil, the stolen fortune. Scotland being one of the most resource-rich nations in Europe, North Sea oil has pumped hundreds of billions of pounds into the UK economy, and what did Scotland get in return? Virtually nothing, because Westminster took the lion's share. We know that Norway has a massive wealth fund, $1.4 trillion worth of a wealth fund, and this helps to fund pensions and schools and hospitals and public services for Norwegians pretty much forever. Meanwhile, Westminster squandered Scotland's oil wealth, took it from us, and they spent it on tax cuts for the rich and funding London infrastructure projects. Do Scottish Unionists love this? Well, they must do. They must love knowing that instead of a thriving oil-rich Scotland, we got a Thatcherite economic chaos. They must love that the oil wealth was taken from Scotland while they continue to claim that Scotland is too poor for independence. Imagine Scotland today if we had controlled all of our own resources, instead of watching Westminster burn through our national wealth. But Scotland's Unionists don't really care, because as long as London is in control, they're quite happy. Austerity. This is Westminster's gift to Scotland. In the last decade, thousands of Scots have been forced into poverty because of Westminster's austerity policies. Cuts to universal credit, bedroom tax coming on, and slashed public services have left families struggling to survive. Scotland didn't vote for these policies. We didn't want these policies, but Westminster forced them on us anyway. And the Scottish Unionists stood by and applauded, even though they were affected just as much as we were. They mocked Scotland's fight of austerity against austerity, while cheering the very policies that push ordinary Scots into food banks. They act as if suffering is necessary, as if Scotland should be grateful for being treated like an afterthought. And they still call this a union of equals. If Scottish Unionists had any self-respect, they would be furious at how their own communities have been affected, but instead they defend Westminster's cruelty because loyalty to London comes first, even if that means cheering on Scotland's decline. I personally think we should put a Union Jack outside every single food bank, every one of them, because it's only because of the union that they exist. We've talked about Brexit over and over again, and we will continue to talk about Brexit repeatedly. Why? Because it shows that Scotland's voice does not matter. 62% to remain in the EU. Now, I think it was James that actually came up with the idea, this is Unionist James I mentioned earlier on in the comments on YouTube, that only a certain amount of people in Scotland actually voted to remain, and there was more people stayed at home instead of voting. Now, that's a fair point, but you cannot count people that don't vote in a democratic movement, in a democratic way of thinking. Okay? If it's their democratic right to stay at home, you don't know what their opinions are, and I'm pretty sure afterwards and in the backlash of Brexit, they may have considered now that their vote might have been more important than just staying at home. Anyway, every single council area in Scotland rejected Brexit, but did that matter? No, not at all. Westminster ignored Scotland's vote, dragged us out of the European Union and devastated Scottish industries. Fishing, farming, small businesses have been left crippled by trade barriers and export restrictions and madness with the red tape. Scottish Unionists don't appear to care, because to them, Scotland's voice is irrelevant. They're happy to be ignored as long as Westminster remains in charge. And now they have the audacity to say that Scotland should stop complaining about Brexit. Scottish businesses losing profits. Too bad. Farmers struggling with exports. Deal with it. Scotland's economy being crippled. Move on. Because nothing matters more than defending Westminster's decisions, even if they destroy Scottish jobs and businesses. How much more humiliation will Scotland's Unionists accept before they wake up? Every single one of these examples just show how much Scotland is exploited by Westminster. And every time Westminster takes more from Scotland, Scottish Unionists seem to be okay with this. They laughed when our deposit return scheme was blocked, and then they accepted when England took the same idea for themselves. They ignored the theft of our North Sea oil wealth, watching it fund London while Scotland got virtually nothing. They cheered on austerity and pushed their own, even when it pushed their own communities into poverty, and they've stood by Brexit. Maybe not all Scottish Unionists, but the ones that are vocal, they seem to do these things. They're willing victims, and they accept every injustice that Westminster throws at Scotland, and they defend it. I think that they're too afraid to believe in Scotland that we could succeed, but we are not. Scotland deserves better than this toxic, abusive union. And the first step to fixing it, well, is calling out the Scottish Unionists who enable it. Okay, I'm going to play the first wee song now. It's about 2.5 minutes long. It gives me a chance to go and get a cup of coffee. The lyrics will come up on the thing as well, and so please enjoy it.
Solar oil, they sold our seas, turning our wealth to their own fees. The mines are closed, the steel is gone. They rob the future we built upon. It's not a shame, it's the union's shame. They took the power and left the pain. They chose the path that kept us small. It's time to rise and stand for all. They crushed the unions, broke the trust, privatized what once was just. Our homes were sold, our pensions bled, while Westminster thrived, we were misled. It's not a shame, it's the union's shame. They took the power and left the pain. They chose the path that kept us small. It's time to rise and stand for all. Wars we never chose, turned blind eyes while hardship rose. Our riches stolen, our voices stilled, but now's the time to rebuild. Decisions made so far away have held us down, led us astray. For Scotland's strength will lead the way. The future's ours, we'll seize the day. It's not a shame, it's the union's shame. They took the power and left the pain. They chose the path that kept us small. It's time to rise and stand for all. Stand for all. It's time to rise. See the truth behind their lies. Stand for all. We'll make it right. Scotland's future starts tonight.
There you go. I hope that's the first time I've actually played any of the music that I've written on a live. I sometimes stick them on the end of videos or stick them on TikTok, but I've got about 15 songs now that I've written the lyrics for and then had made into music. And they're all basically this. And Saorsa, that is freedom music in Gaelic or freedom sounds or something like that. Let's have a quick look around. I see Liv and Julianne across in TikTok land. Hi, how are yous? Hope you're good. It's nice to have you here. And there's Grainy Western as well. Hope you're still there. Yes, we know that you like trains, and I like trains as well. Not as much as you though, Grainy Western, which is good. And across in YouTube land. Hi David, thank you for joining us again. I love your work. I try to join your live streams in the morning. I love how you get cross and angry when you're doing the papers. You've got a lot of energy and I genuinely like it. Who else? We've got Mark's there as well. Grangemouth, Eddie, yeah. You think that would have maybe woken the people up in Falkirk. I think that the closure of Grangemouth is an utter travesty. What makes it even worse is that the Labour government are giving millions of pounds to the owners of Grangemouth to go and set up a very similar place in a whole different country. So all Scotland's natural wealth, okay, is going to be refined somewhere else and then sold back to us at a profit. Wake up call, please. It's a total wake up call. Right, we're going to go into segment 2 just now, which is, well, I'll just read straight from my script, okay? Why do Scottish Unionists refuse to acknowledge Scotland's successes under devolution? Why do they mock every achievement by Holyrood that Holyrood has delivered, yet happily reap the benefits of such things like free university tuition, free prescription and progressive social policies? They celebrate Westminster's failures and defend they celebrate Westminster's failures and defend the worst of British politics and pretend that Scotland is incapable of governing itself despite all the evidence to the contrary. So let's set the record straight, because when Scotland makes its own decisions, we thrive. And if we can achieve all this under the limitations of devolution, under the glass ceiling of devolution, just imagine what we could do with an independent nation. The most important one to me just now within my family is free university tuition, because my oldest has just started university at Heriot Watt. Okay, this is investing in Scotland's future, and we need to remember that education should be a right and not a privilege. That's why in Scotland students don't face the crushing weight of lifelong debt just to get a degree. Thanks to Holyrood, young Scots graduate pretty much debt-free, while students in England are saddled with tuition fees of up to £9,250 per year. By the time they're done, they will owe tens of thousands of pounds, often taking decades to pay it back. Now, in all fairness, some of these sort of schemes and things make it easier for them to pay it back, but they're still starting out in life with their degrees with ridiculous debt. And this isn't just about fairness, okay? It's about building Scotland's future. An educated population does nothing but good for our nation, you know? More graduates mean a stronger economy, more innovation, and a workforce that can compete globally. And yet, Scottish Unionists sometimes mock this success. They ignore that it was Holyrood, not Westminster, that made this possible, and even worse, they tell us that under independence, free tuition would be at risk. Why? Because they assume that Scotland would fail despite all the evidence proving the opposite. What they mean is, if Scotland had full control over its finances, Westminster wouldn't be able to take control of our wealth anymore. And they can't have it, can they? Free prescriptions. Okay, this is a bit contentious, and it's something that I've benefited from because I am a cancer survivor and I was getting ridiculous amounts of medication to keep me going during my treatments, okay? So free prescriptions because healthcare shouldn't come with a price tag. No Scot should ever have to choose between feeding their family and getting life-saving medication. That's why in Scotland prescriptions are free. In England, £9.65, a wee bit more now, I believe. And you know, there are deals and ways that you can sort of pay in advance for them and stuff, but it shouldn't have to be that way down south, should it? It's a choice. It's a political choice. It's been made by Westminster. This means that somebody managing a chronic illness could be paying hundreds of pounds a year just to stay alive. Thanks to Holyrood, though, Scotland rejected that system because your health shouldn't depend on your wallet. What a great buzzline that is. Okay, we should make that into some sort of meme, because your health shouldn't depend on your wallet. And yet Westminster won't follow Scotland's lead. Instead, they keep making it harder for people in England to access healthcare, while Scottish Unionists pretend that this is normal. They mock Scotland's successes while happily collecting their free prescriptions. If they really believed in the greatness of the Union, they should be demanding prescription charges be reintroduced here. But of course, they won't do that, because deep down they know that Holyrood has got it right, and they just can't admit it. Let's talk about our renewable energy, powering the future while paying the price. That's what's happening just now. Scotland is a global leader in renewable energy. Through wind, hydro and solar, we nearly generate 100% of our electricity, and some days we have. And this is all from clean energy sources. That's an incredible achievement. It proves that Scotland has the resources, the talent and the vision to be a powerhouse in the green energy sector. But there's just one problem. We don't get to fully benefit from it. Why? Because Westminster controls the market and they profit from Scotland's energy, while we get left with the highest electricity bills in the UK, probably Europe. Instead of investigating in Scotland's energy independence, Westminster is spending billions on building massive superconductor cables to export all of our renewable energies south. It comes into the national grid that way, and then will get pumped back up to Scotland at inflated prices. And the Scottish Unionists? They ignore this robbery. They dismiss the facts and they defend the system, a system where Scotland produces the power, but Westminster takes the profit. What kind of person celebrates being ripped off? Scottish Unionists, apparently. What about the Scottish child payment? Now, this is a real attack on poverty. Child poverty is not just a statistic. It's a national crisis that destroys lives before they've even begun. So when Westminster slashed social security and forced thousands of children into hardship, Holyrood took action. The Scottish child payment was introduced to give direct financial support to low-income families, helping them afford food, clothing and essentials for their kids. It's been game-changing in the fight against child poverty. And what has Westminster done? Nothing. They voted to keep the two-child benefit cap. Recently, Holyrood has explored and will be putting in place mitigating the two-child benefit cap by next year's budget. Now that, was it the Roundtree Foundation said this will actually reduce child poverty in Scotland while it increases everywhere else in the Union. I want to know what Scottish Unionists feel about that. Will they defend it? Will they accept the rise in child poverty everywhere else? Will they consider that we should be the same as everybody else in the Union? Will they justify the cruelty because Westminster says it's necessary? Meanwhile, Holyrood protects Scottish families, but they still insist that we need Westminster control. They are literally arguing against feeding hungry children. What kind of self-respecting person does that? Let's just have a brief look at public health in Scotland. This is somewhere where we find major challenges between drug rehabilitation and various other things. I'm not going to go into the drug policies just now, not because it's too contentious, but because it would take too long. And I think that it deserves a whole segment to itself, and we'll probably explore that in another live stream. But Scotland has been at the forefront of public health initiatives, from introducing UK's first smoking ban to implementing minimal unit pricing on alcohol. Scotland has led the way in progressive policies that improve lives. And what does Westminster do? They drag their feet, mock Scotland's initiatives and quietly introduce the same policies years later. Look at the smoking ban. We introduced it in 2006, and then Westminster followed a couple of years later. The minimal pricing in alcohol? Well, that was in 2018, but now there's talk of Westminster doing the same. Scottish Unionists laughed at these policies when they were first introduced. Now they sit silently watching Westminster steal Scotland's ideas while still insisting that Scotland needs Westminster to function. It's beyond pathetic. Every one of these policies, free university tuition, prescriptions, renewable energy, child poverty reduction and public health measures, were all delivered by Holyrood. Holyrood. Scotland's government, not Westminster. Every one of them has benefited every Scot, Unionist Scot and Indie Scot alike, despite Westminster's interference and resistance. Every one of them proves that when Scotland is in control, we make better choices. And yet, our Scottish Unionist brothers and sisters still take the knee to a system that takes from Scotland and gives us nothing in return. They benefit from Holyrood's successes while defending Westminster's failures. Have they got no pride? I think they have a bit of shame. Or have they no shame? But it doesn't appear that they have any self-respect. But we do. We see what Scotland has achieved, and we see what Scotland could become, and we know the truth. Scotland doesn't need Westminster. Scotland needs to finish the job, because when Scots make decisions, Scotland thrives. And the more decisions we make for ourselves, the brighter our future will be. Let's play the next song. Another one where I've done the words myself, and we'll see what you think.
Pity the Unionists with their heads held low, defending a union that keeps them in tow. Happier to feel than to stand up tall. They love the chains that made them small. Oh, willing to talk, yes, in line. Need that devotion to those who can find. Centuries of abuse, should they still defend the hand that exploits them again and again? What have they gained from the so-called bond? The wealth is taking their future bond. They cheer for the lies, they deny the truth, so that their pride for Westminster's proof. Oh, willing to don't guess in line. Need their devotion to those who can find. Centuries of abuse, should they still defend the hand that exploits them again and again? What have they gained from this so-called bond? The wealth is taking their future pawn. They cheer for the lies, they deny the truth, sold out their pride for Westminster's proof. Oh, willing to don't guess in line. Need the devotion to those who can find. Centuries of abuse, yet they still defend the hand that exploits them again and again. Again and again. They're afraid of the future, afraid of the new, clinging to ghosts to a past untrue. They fear their own strength, they fear their own pride, so they bow to the Union and let Scotland slide. Holyrood rises and they look away, deny success that's made here today. They'd rather see fear than keep up the lies, and stay in the shadow of Unionist ties. Oh, the willing victim, desperate and blind, need their devotion to those who can find. Centuries of abuse, yet they still defend the hand that exploits them again and again. Willing victims, still they kneel, loving the pain, denying the deal. Scotland cries, but they can't see the chains they wear on the Union's legacy.
What do you think of that one? Is that okay? Bit too fast? A bit too rocky? I don't know. You know what? I enjoyed writing the lyrics, and it worked out to be quite good. Let's have a quick look around. There's Grace. Hello, Grace. How are you? Julianne, big hugs to you. Scottish Steve. Hello. How are you? This is all in TikTok land, by the way, because we're across there as well just now. YouTube land. And you know, there was days where TikTok land would have 20, 30 people all watching and commenting and things. But now we have 20, 30 people across in YouTube land, which I really quite like. I quite like the YouTube thing. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The last segment tonight is about something that we get thrown in our face all the time. It's about GERS. And I feel that we need to have a wee look at the context of GERS and explore it a little bit more from a 23-24 sort of financial point of view. Okay, this is important, and all the figures that we're about to discuss just now are on the GERS report, and it's important and eye-opening when you look at it from our point of view. Okay, excuse me. So let's go on with this one, and then we should be finishing about 12 o'clock. Scottish Unionists love to gloat about the GERS report, waving it around as if it's the ultimate proof that Scotland is too poor and too dependent to stand on its own. But I want to take a closer look at what GERS really tells us, and more importantly, what it doesn't tell us. Because once we break this down, the only thing left spinning will be Scottish Unionists trying to justify why they celebrate their own country is being fleeced. So, the GERS report, the Government Expenditure Revenue Scotland for 23-24. On the cover of it, or in the first few sentences, it says, GERS is an accredited official statistics publication. It estimates the revenue raised in Scotland and the cost of public services in Scotland. Please take note of the word estimates. This means that many figures are not exact but approximations, especially in areas where direct data for Scotland is not available. In such cases, expenditures are apportioned using methodologies that distribute UK-wide spending to Scotland on a per capita or other relevant basis. That's per person, basically. While these estimates strive for accuracy, they can introduce a degree of uncertainty into the reported figures. But Scottish Unionists don't care about that. They see the word deficit and their critical thinking shuts down completely. So let's have a look at Scotland's financial contribution and return. So here's the numbers for 23-24. We raised around about £88.5 billion. We'd received a block grant back of around £41 billion. And then Westminster spending on Scotland's behalf was around £30 billion. That's stated in GERS. Scotland generates 88.5, but only 71 billion, 41 plus a 30, is actually accounted for as being spent in or on behalf of Scotland. That leaves approximately a surplus of 17.5 billion that is sent south and not returned. Now let's talk about that 30 billion so you know what that is being spent on. Okay, what does it mean? Well, this is the money not controlled by Holyrood, but spent by Westminster under the guise of public services in Scotland. Things like state pensions funded through UK-wide contributions, but Scotland is forced to rely on Westminster decisions about pension levels and age requirements. Universal credit and welfare, controlled by Westminster, including cuts and policy decisions that harm Scottish families while being recorded as public spending in Scotland. Military and defence, Scotland pays into the UK Armed Forces budget, but where is that money actually spent? Military bases, personnel and contracts are disproportionately based in the south of England. And if I'm not mistaken, it's around about 3.5 billion, 3.8 billion that is spent on defence, from Scotland's share anyway, and about 1.2 is actually spent inside Scotland. Then you've got UK infrastructure spending. Scotland is charged a share of UK-wide projects like the London Crossrail, English road networks, despite having no direct benefit. So this 30 billion is listed as spending on Scotland, but how much of it actually stays in Scotland? And why do Unionists, Scottish Unionists, never ask that question? But then there's this thing called the deficit, that little sort of caveat that makes critical thinking shut down. All right. According to GERS, the total public spending assigned to Scotland is £111.2 billion. Okay. So with 88 billion raised in Scotland, this results as a reported deficit of £22.7 billion. Now that is a financial headache for any government. But here's the critical point. This is stated as public service spending in Scotland. But Scotland does not spend this 22.7 billion. This deficit is attributed to Scotland, but it is not the result of Scottish spending decisions. Instead, it includes expenditures that are allocated to Scotland by Westminster, often without direct benefit to the Scottish public. So, let's ask the only question that matters. Which public benefits from so-called public spending deficit? Our public? Not a chance. Not a chance. It's just not possible. Okay, all this money is spent outside of Scotland. So, there's also this little horrible thing called non-identifiable expenditure. This is the hidden costs, and this is a thing in GERS. It is non-identifiable expenditure. Okay, a significant portion of this assigned spending falls under this title, non-identifiable expenditure. This refers to UK-wide services and functions where spending cannot be directly attributed to specific regions. Examples: international aid, funding countries like Ukraine, Israel, and various developing nations. While humanitarian efforts are very important, the direct benefit to Scotland is minimal, and we are told that we have to pay part of that. What about overseas military operations, engagements in foreign conflicts, and military bases abroad, decided entirely by Westminster? That comes quite happily under the non-identifiable expenditure. National security and intelligence operations, espionage activities and covert operations that are undisclosed, yet Scotland pays into them without oversight. Government administration, the cost of running Whitehall departments, despite Scotland having its own government. These expenditures are not controlled by Scotland, not decided by Scotland, and do not directly affect Scotland. So why are they recorded as public spending in Scotland? And why do Scottish Unionists never question it? The biggest part of non-identifiable expenditure is national debt. Okay, this is utterly frightening. In 2023-24, Scotland was charged, wait for it, £8.352 billion for servicing the UK's national debt. Let that sink in. Scotland was charged £8.35 billion in interest and administration costs. Scotland does not have significant borrowing powers. Scotland did not accrue this debt, and Scotland does not control UK fiscal policy. Yet Scotland is forced to pay £8.352 billion in interest on Westminster's financial decisions that Scotland never voted for. Decisions that prioritise England's economy and not Scotland's, and decisions that Scottish Unionists refuse to question. So what is the conclusion on this bigger picture? So when Scottish Unionists parade GERS around like a trophy, what they're actually doing is mocking themselves. They are celebrating a deficit that was created by Westminster and not Scotland. They are defending a system where Scotland has no control over and how the money is spent. They are ignoring the fact that GERS does not reflect the economy of an independent Scotland, only a Scotland in the Union. Because an independent Scotland wouldn't be forced to suck up a deficit created elsewhere. An independent Scotland would invest differently. It would spend differently. It would borrow differently. It would set its own tax policies. It would negotiate its own international trade deals. It would control its own energy exports and trade exports. It would not be shackled to a financial system designed to drain it of wealth while handing the bill back. So when Scottish Unionists use GERS to bash Scotland, they are not proving Scotland is weak. They are proving that we have no ability, they are proving that they have no ability to critically think about the bigger picture. They see a deficit imposed by Westminster and assume that means that Scotland is failing, when in reality, the only failure is their inability to question why Westminster forces Scotland to take on these costs in the first place. Public spending deficit? My arse. Who's public? Certainly not ours. So the next time a Scottish Unionist throws GERS in your face, just ask them this. Who actually created this deficit? Who actually benefits from this spending? And why are you celebrating Scotland being drained dry? Because when you really think about it, the only thing that GERS proves is that Scotland needs out of this financial mess.
I can't get no sleep.
Grrr. My microphone on? Yes, it is. That's good. How are we? That was good fun tonight. It's been a really lively chat across in YouTube land. There's Hashbury. I never saw you come in there. Glad that you're here. There's Ange. Who else came in? Did I say hello to you, John? Mr. Age of Aquarius? I don't think I did. I did see you come in and stuff. You know, it's great. Listen, interesting comment by Davy McGuinness there as well. A deficit's not a problem if you have a central bank. Absolutely true. Okay, as a normal independent nation, we would have our own central bank. We would have our own currency. And this is something that is something else that gets shoved in our faces. What currency would you use? Whatever one we wanted, but preferably our own one. That's what I'd like to see. The Scottish pound would be a brilliant currency. Why? Because within a couple of years it would probably outperform the Great British Pound. It would, let's face it. Also, we have a bank just now called the Scottish National Investment Bank. Incidentally, my daughter is going to be doing an internship there in the summer. I'm very excited for her. And that to me is the central bank in waiting. All right, because the template for a central bank is tried and tested. And let's say we had a referendum tomorrow, or we were all voted yes tomorrow, and we had a 2.5 year transition period until what I call Flag Day. And we'll talk about Flag Day again in a second. So Flag Day comes 2.5 years later. That's when we're proper independent and the negotiations are all done and dusted. Okay. Why can't we be setting up our central bank during that 2.5 years? Because you're going to, it's for me, it's a no-brainer. We have our very clever people doing the divorce settlement, talking away and getting that sorted. Meanwhile, we have just as clever people negotiating international trade deals, looking at our currency, looking at our infrastructure, setting up the institutions that we need, our own passport office, our own equivalent of the DVLA, all this stuff that we actually have offices for in Scotland. We just make them Scottish, you know? We're not a third world country. We're not starting with an empty basket. Our basket is full of these institutions. It's not going to be too difficult to move from being part of a unproductive, abusive union to beautiful independence. That is what I feel. That's what I feel. Yes, okay. Let's have a quick round robin again and say thank you to everybody. Hey, there's Robert. Hi Robert, hope you're okay. Thank you, we're in here. We're going to be going and jumping on to Discord for anybody that's in the Discord group. I'll be on there for at least a wee half-hour chat tonight. If you want to be part of the Discord group, you need to basically DM me through Instagram or DM me through the Facebook page. And if I miss out on you, I apologise because I've missed a couple of people, but you also need to send me your Discord name and then I will friend you on Discord and then send you an invite. But it's important that you do send me your details. If you don't have a ridiculous amount of social media to send like through a DM for, send us an email at mo@saursascot.com and we can do it that way. But if you do that, I still need to see your social media because I need to make sure that you're a pro-indie person and you're an activist and everything. All right? Yes, I do vet people coming into this, so I just don't want people coming in and causing discord on Discord. Okay? We're going to finish tonight with another song by that I've written for Saorsa. And this one is not anything other than a positive message to the independence movement. And this is about how we've got too much infighting and we've got too much of an addiction to politics and we need to get over ourselves. All right? We do, because the longer we spend looking inwards instead of outwards, all right, we're not going to progress. You know that that's important, and you know how I feel about voting for Scotland at the end of the day. Next week, we're going to look at what I call, in a little bit more detail, the 3 pillars of independence, which is a competent political system and political government, a strong international presence, and then a ridiculously unified grassroots movement. We're going to look at that in more detail and then how that would affect us all when we're voting in 2026. And should we be limiting ourselves to our political flags, or should we be looking at the bigger picture and trying to deliver a pro-Scottish Holyrood? I'm going for the pro-Scottish Holyrood. Okay, anyway, have a good night and I'll see some of you on Discord very soon.
The same, the banner is clear, a future that's ours but it's fractured with fear. Petty games and pride, tearing apart the dream of a nation, the hope in our hearts. Get over yourselves, you're dragging us down, squalling like children while the world spins around. The light of our freedom is fading away. Get over yourselves, stop standing in the way. Get over yourselves, stop standing in the way. Teams and tribes, it's a desperate show. The fire's still burning, but it flickers too slow. While Westminster grins, holding the chains, we bicker and barter, and nothing remains. Get over yourselves, you're dragging us down, squalling like children while the world spins around. The light of our freedom is fading away. Get over yourselves, stop standing in the way. Get over yourselves, stop standing in the way. The cause is too great, the time's slipping fast. We're stuck in the present, but the future's our past. If we don't unite, this chance will be gone. A fractured movement can never be strong. Get over yourselves, you're dragging us down, squalling like children while the world spins around. The light of our freedom is fading away. Get over yourselves, stop standing in the way. Get over yourselves, stop standing in the way. Years from now, when the dust has all cleared and independence finally appears, you'll look back in shame at the time that we lost. The price of your pride wasn't worth the cost. Get over yourselves, it's time to unite. The dream's within reach if we stand up and fight. Get over yourselves, no more delay. Together we rise or together we stay. Get over yourselves, get over yourselves. You're dragging